My name is Abigail Reed, and I'm 32 years old. The first thing I heard when I woke up from my coma wasn't a doctor's worried voice. It was my husband speaking in the hallway. He wasn't grieving, he was strategizing. She was an obstacle, he said, his voice cold as steel. Her accident simplified things. He had no idea I could hear every single word. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I was a ghost trapped in my own body, forced to listen as the man I loved confessed he'd tried to murder me. Before I share my full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you believe in fighting back, because you will not believe what I did next. I stood in my studio, the air thick with the scent of linseed oil and turpentine, my hands trembling as I adjusted the final piece for provenance. The gallery hummed with anticipation. Chicago's art world whispering my name, Abigail Reed, the curator carrying her father's torch. My father's gallery, his life's work, was mine now, and this exhibition was my chance to prove I was more than his shadow. The canvases glowed under the soft lights, a Monet, a Cabot, a Degas, each a piece of his legacy I'd fought to preserve. Marcus, my husband, swept in, all charm and sharp suits, his smile dazzling the reporters crowding the gallery's marble foyer. He raised a glass of champagne, his voice warm as he toasted, "To Abigail, the heart of this gallery." The crowd clapped, their eyes on us, the perfect couple. But when his gaze met mine, there was a flicker. Something cold, like a blade catching light. I brushed it off. I always did. That night I stayed late in the archive room, a cavern of shadows and shelves heavy with my father's ledgers. The rolling ladder creaked under my weight as I reached for a file. My head spun, a sudden vertigo gripping me. I blinked, my eyes catching a discrepancy in the Cabot appraisal. Numbers that didn't add up, a signature that felt wrong. My heart thudded. I leaned forward and then, nothing. The world tilted, the ladder betrayed me and I fell. A shadow moved in the corner of my vision, deliberate, retreating, then black. I woke, or didn't, in a gray haze. Not awake, not asleep, a limbo where sound trickled in like water through cracks. Machines beeped, a nurse's shoes squeaked, and then Marcus's voice, not at my bedside but in the hallway, sharp and clipped. "We need to pivot," he said. "The gallery's direction, it's simpler now." His tone wasn't grief, it was opportunity. A chill sank into me, deeper than the coma holding me prisoner. I wanted to scream, to claw my way out, but my body was a stone and I was trapped inside. The hospital was a cage of starched sheets and antiseptic air. I was aware, too aware. I felt the IV needle in my arm, the weight of the blanket, the hum of the ventilator. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My thoughts were a storm raging against the silence of my body. I was a ghost in my own skin, hearing the world but unseen by it. Leo came one afternoon, her small voice cutting through the fog. She was 10, the daughter of our registrar, Ellen, a woman who kept her head down and her fears close. Leo idolized me, always trailing me in the gallery with her sketchbook, her dark eyes wide with wonder. She sat by my bed, her words soft but steady. "I drew the Monet today, Abigail. The water lilies. I think you'd like it." I wanted to tell her I did, that her sketches were bursts of light in my father's dim office. But I couldn't. She left her sketchbook on the bedside table, a cheap digital recorder clipped to its cover, a tool she used to capture her thoughts when she wandered the gallery. It was still running, a tiny red light blinking like a heartbeat. I didn't know it then, but that recorder would be my lifeline. Hours later, Marcus entered with another man. My mind flinched. Mr. Alastair, a name my father had spat like a curse. He was an appraiser with a reputation for bending the truth, blacklisted from our gallery years ago. Their voices were low but the recorder caught every word. "The Monet," Marcus said, his tone sharp. "We swap it with Alastair's forgery. No one will know until it's too late." Alastair chuckled, a sound like gravel. "She was close, wasn't she? That Cabot appraisal. Too close." Marcus's voice turned to ice. She was a purist like her father, an obstacle. Her accident simplified things. My heart, or whatever was left of it, stopped. Accident. The shadow I'd seen. It was him. He'd pushed me. My husband, the man I'd loved, had tried to kill me. I was a prisoner not just of my body but of his betrayal. The recorder kept running, a silent witness to Marcus's venom. His voice filled the room, each word a knife. "The plan's simple," he said. "Replace the key pieces, Monet, Degas, the lot. The originals go to my buyer in Dubai. The forgeries stay. When we stage the theft, the insurance payout clears my debts." He paused and I could almost see his smile, the one that charmed crowds but hid a monster. "It's a shame," he said, softer now. "Just a few more days and I wouldn't have had to expedite things. Now I just need her to be a tragic, beautiful memory." My world shattered. He hadn't just pushed me. He'd planned it, calculated it, wanted me gone. The man I'd shared my life with, who'd kissed me goodnight, who'd promised to protect my father's legacy, had tried to murder me. I was nothing to him but a hurdle, a line item to be erased. The rage inside me was a fire, but my body was still a tomb. I screamed in my head, the sound echoing nowhere. Then, something shifted. His words, his betrayal lit a spark in me. It was small, microscopic, but it was real. My right pinky twitched. Violently, defiantly. I felt it, a tiny rebellion against the cage of my coma. Inside I was alive, burning with purpose. I had to survive, I had to expose him. I clung to that twitch like a lifeline, a promise that I wasn't done yet. Marcus thought he'd won, but I was still here and I would fight. Dr. Evans noticed it the next day. He was different from the other doctors. Sharp, kind, with eyes that seemed to see past the charts. He'd been tracking my brain activity, noting spikes that didn't fit the usual patterns. When he saw my finger move, his face lit up. "Abigail," he said, leaning close, "I know you're in there." He started talking to me, not about my condition, but about art, about the way a Gérôme painting could capture light like a living thing. He asked me if I thought Gérôme's Pygmalion was overrated. I blinked twice, no. He grinned, and for the first time I felt seen. Dr. Evans became my anchor. His voice, steady and warm, pulled me from the gray fog of my mind. He'd sit by my bed, talking about Chicago's skyline, the way the Willis Tower caught the sunset, or how a single brushstroke in a Degas could break your heart. I clung to his words, each one a thread tethering me to the world. My pinky twitch became a ritual. He'd watch for it, his eyes bright with hope, and I'd fight to make it happen, to prove I was still here. One day, he asked me about a Gérôme painting, The Snake Charmer, and whether it was too theatrical. I blinked twice. No. He laughed, soft and real, and my mother, who'd been hovering in the doorway, wiped her eyes. For the first time since the fall, I felt a spark of something alive inside me. Something that wasn't just rage or fear. I wasn't alone. But Marcus was always there, a shadow in the corner of my vision. He played the devoted husband perfectly, holding my hand for the nurses, whispering sweet nothings when visitors came. His touch made my skin crawl, but I couldn't pull away. Then he started to shift. He'd linger after hours, his voice low as he spoke to Dr. Evans or my mother. "She's not really responding," he'd say, his tone heavy with false concern. "It's just reflexes, isn't it? Her brain's making things up, creating stories that aren't there." He brought in a new doctor, a man with a slick smile and a name I didn't trust, Dr. Hargrove. Hargrove nodded along, his words clinical and cold. "Traumatic brain injuries can cause confabulation," he said. "She might think she's communicating, but it's not real. Her perception of reality, it's likely gone." My mother's hope crumbled. I saw it in her eyes, the way they dulled when she looked at me. She'd squeeze my hand, but her touch felt like pity, not belief. Even Dr. Evans hesitated, his brow furrowing as he reviewed my chart. Doubt crept in. A poison Marcus spread with every word. I was trapped again, not just by my body but by their disbelief. They thought I was broken, my mind a shattered mirror, reflecting lies. I wanted to scream, to tell them about the recorder, about Marcus's voice confessing his crime, but my blinks were too slow, too weak to fight his lies. I was a ghost again, fading in their eyes. Despair was a heavy thing, heavier than the coma itself. I lay there, listening to the world move on without me. My mother's visits grew shorter, her voice softer, like she was speaking to a memory, not a person. "Maybe Marcus is right," I heard her whisper to Dr. Evans one evening, her words breaking like glass. "Maybe she's not there anymore." The nurses patted my hand, their voices soothing but empty, like I was a child they were humoring. I tried to blink, to signal, to scream with my eyes, but no one saw. My rage was a fire, but it was burning out, leaving only ash. I was losing them, losing myself. Then Leo came back. She slipped into the room, her small frame dwarfed by the hospital chair, her sketchbook clutched tight. Her mother Ellen was distracted, talking to a nurse in the hall. Leo leaned close, her dark eyes searching mine. I don't know what she saw, maybe the desperation, maybe the fear, but I poured everything I had into my gaze. I blinked, frantic, uneven, my eyes flicking to the recorder still clipped to her sketchbook. It was a long shot, a child's toy against a murderer's lies, but it was all I had. Leo froze, her breath catching. She was only 10, but she was sharp, sharper than most. She'd always been wary of Marcus, her small body tensing when he was near. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the recorder. Then, something shifted in her face. A spark of understanding, a maturity that didn't belong in a child's eyes. She unclipped the recorder, her movements quick and quiet, and slipped it into her pocket. She met my gaze and gave a single firm nod, like a soldier accepting a mission. As she left with her mother, the sketchbook stayed behind, but the recorder was gone. My heart pounded, a wild, hopeful thing. Leo was my chance, my voice, my way out of this cage. Leo didn't let me down. She took the recorder to her mother, Ellen, who listened with trembling hands. Ellen had always been timid, her job at the gallery her lifeline, but she'd seen the cracks in Marcus's facade, discrepancies in paperwork, late-night meetings he couldn't explain. Leo's conviction, her small voice fierce with certainty, pushed Ellen past her fear. They went to Dr. Evans, who played the recording in his office, his face hardening with every word. Marcus's voice, cold and clear, laid out his plan. The forgeries, the theft, my accident. Dr. Evans didn't hesitate. He called my mother, and together they formed a quiet conspiracy, a plan to trap Marcus without risking the recorder's evidence. The next day they confronted him in my room. I was propped up, my eyes burning with a fire I hadn't felt since the fall. Marcus stood by the window, his face a mask of concern, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Dr. Evans spoke first, his voice calm but pointed. "Marcus, what's happening with the Monet, the one for provenance?" Marcus laughed, a perfect charming sound. "It's safe, of course, ready for the show." My mother's voice shook as she pressed, "Are you sure nothing's changed?" His smile didn't waver, but his eyes flickered. Dr. Evans didn't blink. He pulled out his phone and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room, confessing everything. The forgeries, the buyer, my fall. The air shifted, heavy with the weight of truth. Marcus's face went pale, then red. He lunged, not for the phone but for my mother, grabbing her arm. "You meddling old fool," he snarled. "She was meant to be gone." His words were raw, a second confession, uglier than the first. Dr. Evans moved fast, pressing a panic button hidden under my bed's railing. 2 police officers stepped in, their faces grim. Marcus froze, his hands falling limp. The fight was over. He was done. The hospital room felt different after Marcus was taken away, the air lighter but jagged, like a storm had passed but left broken branches in its wake. The police officers escorted him out, his wrists cuffed, his charm shattered. I watched it all through half-open eyes, my body still heavy but my mind sharp, burning with a strange mix of triumph and exhaustion. The recorder, that tiny cheap device, had been my sword, and Leo had wielded it for me. But victory didn't feel like I'd imagined. It was raw, messy, a wound that hadn't yet started to heal. The fallout was chaos. The Chicago art world exploded with the scandal. Headlines screamed about Marcus Thorne, the golden boy turned fraud, turned would-be murderer. The gallery's board scrambled, their polished faces pale as they faced the truth. My father's legacy had nearly been gutted. With Marcus's scheme exposed, they had no choice but to hand control back to me, the rightful heir. But I wasn't ready to stand yet, not fully. My recovery was a slow, grueling climb. Physical therapy left me trembling, my muscles weak from weeks of stillness. The media swarmed, their cameras flashing outside the hospital, their questions sharp as knives. "Abigail, how does it feel to survive attempted murder? What's next for the Reed Gallery?" I wanted to scream at them to leave me alone, but my voice was still a whisper, my body a traitor. My mother was there, her hands hovering, her eyes wet with guilt. She'd believed Marcus, if only for a moment, and that betrayal stung deeper than I wanted to admit. We were rebuilding, but it was fragile, like a canvas stretched too thin. I learned Dr. Hargrove, the second neurologist, had been paid off by Marcus, another layer of his cruelty. It hurt, but it also freed me. Every lie he'd told was unraveling, and I was no longer the crazy one. Dr. Evans was my rock, his visits a quiet constant. He didn't talk about my condition anymore. He talked about life, his favorite diner on the south side, the way Lake Michigan looked at dawn. He'd bring coffee, sip it slowly, and tell me I'd get there, one step at a time. Then there was Leo. She'd sneak in after school, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, her eyes bright but wary, like she was waiting for the world to break again. She'd saved me, this quiet, fierce girl, and I couldn't let her go back to a life of shadows. Ellen, her mother, was struggling, her job at the gallery secure but her confidence shaken. I talked to her one evening, my voice hoarse but steady. "Let me take care of her," I said. Ellen nodded, tears falling, and we started the process. At the guardianship hearing, I signed the papers with a hand that still shook, Dr. Evans holding Leo's hand as she beamed up at me. We left the courthouse together, not as curator, doctor, and orphan, but as something new, something real, a family born from crisis. 2 years later, I stood in the gallery, paint-splattered jeans clinging to my legs, a slight limp marking every step, a permanent reminder of the fall. The Reed Gallery was alive again, not with the sterile polish Marcus had pushed for, but with raw, vibrant energy. The new collection was mine, not my father's, not Marcus's. I'd scoured Chicago's hidden corners for emerging artists, their work bold and unpolished, voices that didn't need a pedigree to sing. The walls held paintings that spoke of struggle, joy, and everything in between. Less profitable than Marcus's vision, but honest. My father would have loved it. The gallery was packed for the opening, the crowd buzzing, but I felt steady, grounded. Leo was by my side, 14 now, her sketchbook still her constant companion. She'd grown taller, her eyes sharper, but she still hummed softly when she painted, a habit that made my heart ache with love. Dr. Evans James now was there too, his tie loose, his smile easy. He'd become more than a doctor, more than a friend. We hadn't named what we were, but his hand brushing mine as we walked through the gallery felt like a promise. On my desk, next to a photo of the three of us laughing on a Lake Michigan beach, sat Leo's old sketchbook. The recorder was long gone, its job done, but the sketchbook stayed, its pages worn from years of love. It was a symbol of what we'd survived, of the bond that had pulled me from the dark. I'd framed one of Leo's early drawings, a sketch of the Monet water lilies, and hung it in my studio, a reminder of her courage. In that studio, light poured through the windows, painting the room gold. I was teaching Leo to mix cerulean blue, our brushes moving in rhythm, her humming filling the quiet. The canvas in front of us was half-finished, a swirl of color and possibility. I looked at her, at the life we'd built from betrayal and ruin, and realized my greatest work wasn't on these walls. It was here, in this moment, the resilient, messy, beautiful life we'd carved out together. I was free, not just from Marcus, but from the weight of who I'd been. This was my masterpiece, and it was enough. My cage was real. But the most important lesson I learned is that even in your darkest moment, you are not powerless. Your strength might be a silent scream only you can hear, or a flicker of movement no one else notices, but it's there. And sometimes your greatest allies won't be the ones you expect. Look for the people who see the fire in your eyes when everyone else only sees the ashes. Never ever give up the fight.